Yeah.
This is Ed in San Diego, and welcome to Global TV Talk Show. As you could see, Global HR Business is the show, and our very special guest today, right here, right now in London, is Heather. Heather, welcome. De Cruz,
Hey.
Heather De Cruz Quanier.
Yeah. Hey, Ed.
Welcome, welcome. And I'm going to let Stephen in here. And so I'm going to do the introductions, of course, but I want the audience to know who you are and what you're doing.
Hey,
And
Stephen.
Good morning. How are you?
Good afternoon, young man.
Good afternoon to you. I need to get rid of my background. Sorry, that's a client background that I was doing some video recording for yesterday.
yeah, well, welcome again, Stephen.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm glad you could do this. So we're going to be joined by three or four others. Not everybody can make it this morning, in my morning. But it doesn't matter. This is just going to be a preview of the April 23 event. As I mentioned, the um, the program itself is not going to be broadcast. I have to let people in here. 1 second, please. I'm sorry. Okay, there we go. I'm doing this manually. I just clicked come in. Okay, there we go. Hello, welcome. Hello, Miriam. Oh, hello. This is Ed.
Hi, Ed. This is Hagen.
Yes, hello. Nice to meet you, Dr. Hagen.
Yes, nice to meet you too.
And this is Miriam Bruce. Welcome.
Hi.
Okay, and I'm going to admit Carla Foden from Gallagher into the program.
Hi, Hagen. Hi, Miriam. I'm Heather.
Hi, Heather.
I'm in London. Where are you, Hagen?
Based in Frankfurt.
In Frankfurt.
Ja, in Frankfurt.
Schön. Einen schönen guten Tag. Herzlich willkommen.
Sehr gut, danke.
Hi, Miriam. Where are you dialing in from?
Hi there. I am dialing in from London.
Oh, fantastic. Another Londoner or another London-based person. Fantastic.
And also from London, here's Carla. Hello, my
Hey.
friend. Hi there.
Hey,
Welcome.
Carla.
Welcome. You're on mute. Oh, unmute. There we go. Okay, everybody. So this is my good friend and business colleague, Stephen Howard. Where are you today, Stephen?
I'm in Mexico City today.
That's cool. Very cool. All right, so everybody, Stephen has been on many of our programs over the past 3 years. We've partnered in a few of the programs, and he's actually a leading bestseller, a leadership trainer and thinker, and has won awards this past year with a new book that's taken the HR industry and business leadership industry by storm. And the book is called Humany, Humony, and it has to do with harmony in the workplace. Stephen, why don't you just quickly say that better than me?
I think you covered it, Ed, but yeah, I've written 22 books. I've spent most of my life living outside the United States. I lived in Singapore for 21 years and then Australia for 12 years. I've been in Mexico City for the past 3 years now. So I kind of take a global perspective to things.
Yeah, that's very, very good. Okay, so you're now on the speaking circuit, more than full time, it looks like.
Yeah, it's pretty busy at the conference business is conference industry's back full swing, I think, after the pandemic. People got away from these hybrid events, which were a nice attempt, but in my opinion, didn't really work very well. And now it's either fully virtual or fully in present. And so it's nice to see the industry coming back to life.
Yeah, okay. So in the past, I have tried to implement video virtual speakers into our live events, and So I've done it a half a dozen times, and most of the time it's all right, but sometimes it just doesn't work. So in this London meeting, I've decided to not have virtual as of now anyway. And that's why I wanted to do this preview, this briefing, if you will, that's being recorded right now. It is not going public until you all individually approve what we're doing here. So welcome, James. Oh, you're on mute.
Even after all these years.
Yes, I know. Yeah, James was with us in the first London event on May 9 of 23. Seems like a long time ago, but it really wasn't. And now here you are again, and thank you very much for doing this. Dr. Hagen, you're in Frankfurt and you're head of Germany for Mayor Brown employment law and benefits. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, joined 5 years ago. About spent a few more years with another firm beforehand, and I'm heading the German employment and benefits team at Mayer Brown. Yeah.
Okay, great. And Miriam, tell us about yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. So I am an employment lawyer based in London. I'm a partner at Mayer Brown, and I have spent all of my career at Mayer Brown, actually. I trained there and just love the culture and ethos and the clients I work with that I've never wanted to go anywhere else. So I've been there my whole career, and my practice is very broad. I do all parts of employment law, from litigation to transactional work and also advisory work. And a lot of what I do is working with my colleagues, Hagen, James, and others on global international projects. And a lot of what we're going to be talking about at your conference is about the changing workplace, global workplace, and in particular how it's really evolved in recent years, and has been kind of speeded up really by the pandemic.
Indeed, yes. And we're going to be talking with a few other people as they arrive on screen here. Excuse me, just getting some needed water here. So, James, you're counsel in London, and you focus on immigration, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So I deal with two areas mainly. So UK inbound immigration, so helping large corporate clients move their people into the UK, and also we deal with sort of what I would call European coordination, so helping our clients move people around Europe. And what we particularly get involved with in Europe is sort of big projects. So when companies have got sort of large deployments where they're moving people to several jurisdictions at the same time, or within or for part of a project, then we're helping them, making sure that they plan, strategize those moves to make sure that they can go to those countries, do in the timeframes they want to get there, and perform the activities that they're looking to do.
To what extent is Brexit fading, or is it still strong as a big issue?
As I always say to everyone, I will never get over Brexit. But it is still a big issue, and it is still, we're still seeing the effects. People are still surprised. I'm still getting calls from clients who are surprised to hear that Europe has, that have 26 countries, and all of them have their own separate immigration laws. You can't look at Europe as a group. Their immigration laws for each country is different. So when you've got people traveling into Europe, and if they're doing business activities, they have to realize that although they may do one set of business activities in one country, that might be different to others. And it's the same the other way around. So Europeans coming into the UK, suddenly they realize there are restrictions on what they do when they come in. Suddenly they're being asked questions when they come into the UK, and when Brits are going into Europe, about what they're doing in country, which is just completely foreign to them. Whereas we went for 40 odd years, whatever it was, with no questions being asked. So it's still an issue, and people are still surprised at sort of at the fact that they don't have the freedoms that for British people coming into Europe and Europeans coming to the UK, they don't have the freedoms that they did before.
It's really interesting, and we, of course, will have that as part of our discussion on April 23 in the live event at HSBC. Miriam, I understand that you focus in as an employment lawyer, labor law is the British way of saying that, right? And so, but your specialty is diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace, and you want to give us a legal perspective of that during the live event, and perhaps now. And I'd like you to also touch in on affirmative action. Is that still relevant in today? And if you could please touch a little bit now also about AI, and is it a ticking time bomb, or is it really going to be a blessing?
Well, that's the great debate, isn't it? But you're right, Ed. During my session with you on the 23rd, I'm going to be focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion, a legal perspective. So I'll be looking at what global organizations need to do, not only to comply with the law, but also to address some systemic barriers and biases that prevent certain groups from fully participating and thriving in the workplace. And you're right, I think affirmative action is a hot topic and has been for a number of years. And what's really interesting is the kind of different approach that we see to that topic, both in the US, where affirmative action there's almost a kind of prevailing wind against affirmative action in some quarters in the US. Whereas if you look at the UK, we don't have our version of affirmative action is effectively called positive action, and that's something slightly different. So I'll be looking at some of the global differences behind that concept. And AI is what we're all talking about as employment lawyers or labor lawyers, depending on where you're based. And we've been advising clients in particular over the last 12 months about the benefits of an AI, but also the risks. And in particular, when you're recruiting talent, lots of global organizations are using AI as a recruitment tool, which, has some fantastic benefits, but there are some pitfalls to watch out for too. So we'll be talking about some of the pros and cons and really how you can, as an employer, harness AI in a way that really helps to grow your business.
Really fascinating stuff for me. I'm just a media maven here. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm learning a lot from you guys. So, Dr. Hagen, the MIRA, the MIRA, and James, and also Miriam, please jump in on MIRA, the misclassified risk assessment. This means, Dr. Hagen, that it depends on how people are classified, and there's consequences, right?
Absolutely, absolutely correct. So MIRA is a legal tech solution that we developed at Mayer Brown. It stands for Misclassification Risk Assessment, and that is a concept that we know basically in every jurisdiction, that individuals that should be treated as employees from a employment law, tax law, social security law perspective are not classified, not treated as employees, but as independent workers in different categories. And the legislators are highly interested in protecting the rights of these individuals, and they're also highly interested in collecting tax and social security contributions. And because that is something employers not always want to do, there are strict laws enforcing the proper classification of employees in different ways. MIRA is a tool that helps our clients to basically perform a test. It comes as a questionnaire. Companies put in certain information on how a relationship is going to be implemented. And in the end, they get a risk assessment. Is there a risk of misclassification or not? And depending on where you are, the consequences are not only of financial nature. In Germany, for instance, there are criminal law consequences tied to improper classification. So Germany's clients in Germany, for instance, are highly interested in using that tool, getting a proper risk assessment. In other jurisdictions, the test is more finance-based. So, but something that ties in with the topic that we're going to talk about on the 23rd. So what are the trends in the workplaces? And one of the categories we want to touch is atypical workers and the legal framework for atypical workers. And our Mira tool ties in directly with that topic.
Interesting. Miriam, what's your take on that?
So look, I think we have in the UK kind of a similar concept, i.e. kind of assessment of worker status. And it's been a real hot topic for us in our jurisdiction for a long time. And really, Hagen and his team have been leading the way with the Mira tool. I wish it was as straightforward as that in the UK to have something like that at our disposal, but the court system has kind of brought about some areas of uncertainty, I think, when it comes to assessing worker status. But it's for sure a real growing area, has been for the last 5 years, and I anticipate the same for the UK market moving forward too.
Yeah, James, would you like to add?
I mean, ultimately, when it comes down to it, for the classification of workers from an immigration point of view, that it makes a difference as to whether workers can actually be sponsored to work in a country by an employer. So, and lots of jurisdictions have requirements for whether if a company wants to sponsor a migrant employee, whether that person has to be an employee, whether they can be a worker, whether they can be self-employed. So knowing what the status of that worker is very important. And being able to demonstrate that to the authorities is also important. So from that point of view, that's why it is a useful tool.
Oh, thank you very much. We're being joined now by Yvonne Kwa, who is an author of a book, a really popular book. Hi, Yvonne. I'm just introducing you here. Oh, you're welcome. You have a bright light shining behind you.
Yes, it's the window. It's the window.
Oh, well, it's good to have sunshine, but okay, well, if you can do that, that'll be great. Okay, so
is that better?
Yeah, a little bit. You have this glow behind your head.
Let me put it down.
Okay.
Let me put it down.
And you're on live TV. So here we go. So everybody, Yvonne is the author of a great book called Whose Job Is It? Yours, mine, or ours? And it has to do with the dual career issue of highly qualified, successful people. And Yvonne's day job is with the World Bank in Washington, D.C., trainer, the leader of advisor of the World Bank Family Network in the bank, and she can do a lot better than me talking about this, is that we have really high-paid couples, people, and there's an issue of whose job is it really because of the impact on me. Yvonne, quickly, I'd like you to meet, also in London, is Heather, who was the researcher of that Permits Foundation report that is all about dual career. Heather, meet Yvonne.
Hi, Yvonne.
Hi. Look forward to a greater conversation. We should have met, but we haven't. So we'll try and before the 23rd.
Yeah, in person, inside the bank, and there'll be about between 40 and 50 in the room, and it'll be a round table kind of set up, very informal in a beautiful building, very high security. Make sure when you come you have government ID, and get ready for an important day. So Yvonne, quickly, I'd like to introduce you to our legal team here, part of it. This is Miriam Bruce in London, and James Perrott, also in London. And in Frankfurt is Dr. Hagen. And we'll be joined by Julian in Paris and Liz who in Washington, D.C. on the program, and perhaps some others. And a number of corporate people will be in the audience live in person. With that in mind, I want to make sure Carla Foden, please introduce yourself real quick about your role, about yourself, and what your take on all that we've just been talking about. What's your
Yeah,
take?
sure. Yeah, sure. So Carla Foden, I'm the growth lead and managing consultant for our global mobility solutions team, which is part of the wider multinational benefits team within Gallagher. So our focus has been very much over the last 2 years about transforming how we work with our clients. We are a disruptor for sure within the industry, bringing something very fresh and new, and enabling our clients to really manage their global mobility programs for the very first time, all in one place, and for an employee to actually have all the different moving parts when they relocate in one place.
Yeah, so that's always been a problem. It's always been a resource to have a lot of different moving parts, but now it's just too much. Simplify. Yeah.
So as you said, and I liked the way you phrased it, Ed, before, it's the revolution, for sure. It's a different way of approaching mobility. So hearing that, Brexit is still a bit of a problem for many companies. We're certainly not the immigration specialists. We work with all different service lines according to what it takes to move your people around the world. But to kind of hear that from the experts in immigration is really interesting. But for us, it's kind of more looking at mobility holistically, and challenging the old ways of working, and bringing something new, an ecosystem, and working with all the different specialisms, no matter what area it is, benefits, employment law, it doesn't matter. The key is that it's all in one place. It's a lot easier for an employee to move when they haven't got that stress of dealing with loads and loads of different IT platforms and companies, etc.
So, Dr. Hagen and Miriam, James, let's talk about the classification of mobile employees, or remote mobile, or not mobile, they're remote, somewhere over there, but not in the office. This is a legal compliance issue now, isn't it?
Absolutely, and there are several aspects you could discuss. So the interesting beginning of this whole development was the Corona pandemic. Certainly, as we all know, from one day to another, employees were asked to work from home, work remotely. Before that, employees asked but wouldn't be allowed to do that. So it started, and the interesting aspect is that many companies did not follow through with putting proper policies in place, amending their contracts with the employees. So over time, for many individuals, let's say an entitlement, a contractual entitlement developed to work from home. And that's a big issue now at a point in time when many companies try to bring their workforce back into the office. It's not only, let's say, a talent retention issue for companies if companies don't allow remote working, but some need their employees in the office, in the company, but are not able to force employees to come back. So that's one of the big issues companies have to deal with. And then certainly the remote working, and that's probably more a topic for you, James, creates very interesting concepts of employees traveling around the world, never showing up at their home country, lots of immigration tax and social security issues.
No, that's right. And ultimately what we're seeing and what the pandemic did was it showed that a lot of people can do their jobs from anywhere and can do those jobs from another country. And what that has led to is more employees asking their employers if they can work from another country. And that could either be on a long-term basis because they want to move for, say, family reasons, whether that's because a spouse has their jobs moved to a different country, so they want to follow their spouse, or they've got an elderly parent, for example, who needs more care. So, employers are getting more of those sort of requests. And then also we have the short term, which is I always like to describe as the fact that people go on holiday for 2 weeks, and what they decide actually what they'd like to do is do another 2 weeks, and they'd rather do it as sitting by the pool working rather than coming back to the UK, for example. So it's, and that creates problems, because ultimately, if it's if there's a long-term aspect to this, you then have to look at from an immigration point of view. Does the person already have immigration permission, which allows them to work there? Do they have the right nationality, for example? Or are they going to need immigration permission? And if so, how is the company going to facilitate that? Does the company have an entity in that jurisdiction which can sponsor? So there are things like that have to be looked at. And also, actually, there are as Harden said, you have to also look at what, can they do the job in that jurisdiction? Are there any regulatory considerations? If they're going for a long time, does that bring on employment risks? Are there local tax filings which will need to be done? So there's a lot of things which need to be thought of, and companies are more and more trying to grapple with this. And then when you come to the short-term side of things, mostly people are going into these jurisdictions as visitors. They have visitor immigration permission. Now, generally, visitors are not allowed to work in the country where they are visiting, but the law on this has evolved, and mainly due to the pandemic. And lots of countries now do allow remote working for a short period, but also there are countries who don't allow it, or if they do allow it, there are certain restrictions. So the way the countries treat the idea of short-term remote working does vary widely. So it's important that companies are aware, when they're looking at these requests and are receiving these requests, that they're aware of what the local laws are, to see whether remote working is permitted in that particular jurisdiction.
Isn't that interesting? So this is a leadership issue. So I'm going to ask Stephen Howard to comment on all this. But before we do that, I may need representation, because I'm sitting here in San Diego, California, 8 miles from the Mexican border, and yet, I don't really know. Am I working in London, Miriam? Am I working in Frankfurt right now, Dr. Hagan? Am I working in Mexico City with Stephen Howard now? Or am I just doing my thing on Zoom? Am I breaking laws? Should I be filing taxes because I'm doing remote work via Zoom at this moment?
You're probably in a safe spot right now, so I wouldn't worry too much.
Okay, good.
I think you're safe, Ed. What you do is not work; it's fun.
So, Stephen, this is what we're talking about here is leadership issues, right? In the new world of work, in this transformative times we're in now.
Definitely a leadership issue, particularly a compliance issue. And it's one of those things that, I couch leaders today, that humility goes a long way as a leader. You can't know everything as a leader. And, you're talking about these situations. I mean, if you're a manager or leader in London, you have no idea what the employment laws, the immigration laws are in Mexico City. Right. So, that's why you need to use outside resources like the people you have assembled here today. The thing I find very interesting about all this is that to me, for a long time, this seems like a movement by many governments to start to protecting employees instead of the employer, in terms of certain rights, certain benefits. And I think some of the labor laws over the years have been skewed in many countries towards the employer, not the employee. So I think that's helping to make the things a little bit more equitable. As I've said for a couple of years now, and I actually borrowed the phrase from Steve Cadigan, is that the war for talent is over and talent has won. And this is an example where talent needs to be protected in these situations, as well as the organization needs to be protected from a compliance standpoint. So this is all good stuff.
Interesting. Let's talk about the dual career issue here for a moment. I recognize that time is flying by here and everybody's really busy today. So Heather and Yvonne, you're going to be featured in the live meeting April 23 at HSBC. And this is like a worldwide issue. It's old. It's an old issue. The dual career dilemma has been going on for years. And the Permits Foundation was set up by companies, of course, but to benefit the spouses of relocated executive talent. particularly in Switzerland, if I remember right, or Netherlands. Heather, what's the background?
So hi everyone, I'm a European at heart. That's how I introduce myself from my background, and I'm married, my husband's French, and I've worked in Germany for 11 years and all sorts of things. So I do consider myself European, and a lot of what you've said, James and Miriam, really resonates with me, that we're in an echo chamber. That's what I feel. I'm also a dual career, but I had a career in my own right before I moved with my husband. And the way I word it is that my husband was promoted and I became unemployed, even though I'm more qualified than he is. And I was earning more money than he was before I actually moved with him. So hence my dedication and passion to work in this field. Yvonne, I'm sure you'll agree with me. Once you've been an expat dual career spouse, it stays with you, it lives with you, it breathes with you. So the Permits Foundation, you're quite right, Ed. It's an NGO located in the Netherlands. And for 20 years now, they have dedicated and lobbied worldwide in order to get direct work access for dual career families, so that highly qualified spouses can actually work and get an entry permit that's dependent. It's actually linked to the employee, so that that's one less concern when they move. And the UK was the very first country that this was authorised in, and it's become best practice. So they liaise with MAC, they liaise all around the world, lobby with different governments and politicians in order to get this issue on the radar. So that's just a little bit about me in the background. I advocate for permits. I don't work for permits, but that's how strongly I believe in this issue. And I've dedicated the last 5 years of my career really to raising this issue, taking the research that they've done, because they have a very solid body of metrics. So I take their metrics and I add different levers to those metrics by putting qualitative voices on of spouses and share those voices with people in global mobility in order for the sense of health and well-being to become part of a global mobility value proposition, which I believe, and I'm sure Yvonne will agree with me, is very, very important.
Yvonne?
It's very interesting.
Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, very interesting, because I read the Permits Foundation survey, and I've also taken part as a practitioner in that survey. Increasingly, the number of spouses do want to work. And I think now, given the statistics that women are graduating out and outperforming the men, both the boys and girls at school and at university level. So you have women who are very ambitious. So this problem is not going to go away. And I agree with Heather, because if there is no access to work, you're basically illegal. So it's very hard to coordinate a career. And actually, I don't know whether things have changed, but the last time I looked at the map of Permits Foundation, there are only 35 countries where it's free passage. And a lot of that block is the European Union. And so if you're working in the European Union, depending what your business is, then dual career in terms of access, work access, it's not an issue. But then you have language, you have your skills. I mean, there are other things, but I do think you're stopped at the gate if you don't have permit, the right to work. Absolutely. I mean, there are ways around. There are ways around. Creative, one way around, and I used that myself, and that was entrepreneurship. And you set up your own company. That is one way in some countries. If you own a company, you are not subject to work permit regulations, right? And you have to have local partners and all that. But that's not easy unless you know that you have at least 5 years, because by the time you navigate all the permits and try to set up your own business, to see the light at the end of the tunnel, you need at least 5 years. So, and most assignments don't last that long. So it is complex. So I don't think it's about to go away. And I think there are challenges both for the globally mobile. I know we're talking about global mobility, but there's also dual career issues for people who are at home. Because in a country, a vast country like the US, I mean, East Coast, West Coast, that's a big move. Okay, if both are Americans, you don't have immigration problem, but you still have career challenges that you have to face because your company, it may be the wrong time, they may not let you work remotely. Or you stay on the East Coast and your partner goes to the West Coast. So I don't think there's an easy answer to this.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I want to urge everybody here to use the chat and introduce yourselves to each other, because that will be ROI for you going forward, making connections. And I'm really happy to organize this and bring people into what I call my happy place, the global meeting room, not only here, but also in the bank. The bank is doing this for the third time, HSBC, and I invited a representative to join us, but apparently he's not going to make it. And also from AGS Worldwide, they're a top sponsor. Andrew Elliman from UK will be joining us any minute now. So the people who are being invited by AGS and by Mayor Brown and by me and Andrew and others, the total should be limited to 50. We don't want to have a large crowd because we want it to be highly interactive throughout every session. And the corporate people who are not going to be announced here at this moment, but they're high level and from a variety of companies. And let's welcome Andrew Elliman from the UK, European head of AGS Worldwide.
I have to apologize. I had an urgent meeting that I couldn't get out of, so I do apologize for being late on this call.
Well, you missed all the fun. We were talking with lawyers.
I imagine. I know.
Okay, so Andrew, why don't you quickly introduce yourself to these people, and then I'll take it from there.
Yeah, sure. So I think I know most of you, actually. I think we've met in the past, most of you. My name's Andrew Elliman, and I head up the European business development teams across Europe for the AGS Group. And we're a relocation company that help companies to relocate around the world. Yeah, looking forward to seeing you all at the on the 23rd.
Yeah, it's coming up. It's coming up fast. So tell us about some of the people who you introduced me to in the past, who are going to be in our show. Tosin is with a healthcare company. She's head of talent and mobility for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And then we have Selena from Lumentum. And she was just appointed to a United Nations group about mobile talent. So she's going to be speaking. And then also Khadija Islam from a construction company called Greco. I'm really proud to have Khadija join us. And there'll be several others. I'm not going to be able to announce those yet because they're not confirmed right now. So it's really going to be a high-level show. Andy, you brought me into the bank to meet your friend, Cull, about 3.5-4 years ago, and I'm really grateful, of course. Look what we've done together since. And with the blessing of the bank, otherwise it wouldn't happen. So, but you know, this one I think is going to be the best.
Yeah, I think if you think where we started originally, it was an idea that Edwin had He asked me if there was anywhere that we could put this on in London, and I've done talks for HSBC in the past. I do motivational speaking as well, and I asked them for a favour, and I said, look, you know, we're looking to put this on. Would you be interested? And now we're on our third or fourth one that we're doing.
Yeah, this is 3, and number 4 might be in late September. But
yeah, and it's been growing and growing since then. So we've had quite a good attendance on all of them. I think this time round, we've got quite a few decent people that are going to be in the audience as well that are turning up. We've got quite a few new companies that are going to be there as well, so that's good. So yeah, it should be quite a good day. I mean, they're quite a fun day, actually. It's quite a fun day. Ed always turns it into a really sort of everyone's interactive in these events, so it's quite a good day, isn't it, Ed? And
yeah, well, you know, I'll tell you how I do it. It's not a trade secret. It's just you got to do it, and it's preparation. Like a no-brainer, right? And so it's all about learning about the people who are going to be in the room, and I ask them to share something about themselves. I welcome people to give me their talking points. In other words, items they identify, very, very important items that they want me to be sure to ask them for dialogue, and then get the conversation going across the aisle. And that just creates wonderful rapport and energy, and so many relationships have blossomed as a result of that methodology. And but once again, without you, Andy, and Cole and the bank, it just wouldn't happen if we were doing this in the back room of a fancy restaurant.
Well, I think it's come about because, I mean, well, I've known you, Ed, for many years. Let's not say how many years. And I know I've done talks for you in Paris before. And
yeah, I know. I didn't have gray hair at the time, and you probably had more hair.
I had hair back in the day, though. but it's just been quite nice, because I think sometimes our industry, we need to come together as an industry, and I think we're all different aspects of what we do, and we all touch the same sort of people that are in our industry. The relocation industry for us is, it's all about moving people, and I think this is what most of us do, right? In a different capacity. There's always I always think if you was to get everyone that you would need to help you to relocate, and we all fit into that puzzle, right? We're all part of that puzzle. And I think there's too many events out there where it makes it hard for us, as a lot of the time, and I will say a lot of us that are maybe on the supplier side, there's a lot of times where it's difficult unless you pay the money to be at these events, and they're really expensive. It's very difficult, and I think it keeps us away from a lot of the corporate side. And the corporates don't know who we are half the time, because, if you're not playing that game of spending the money at these big events that are out there, and you don't, right? So we shy away from those events. And the thing I like about Edwin is it's sort of bringing us all together. Okay, we've all got to put our own sort of sponsorship into that, but at the same time, it's nowhere near like you would be with these big organizations. And I think what's nice about these ones is they're quite compact. You'll have 40 people in the room, 50 people in the room, so you've got more chance of actually having more quality in the room than you would with thousands of people in the room. So from that side, you get more across. But the nice thing is it goes out live then on these shows, so you're still getting to those big crowds that you want through the system. So it works quite nicely.
Yeah,
and there's a nice feel to it as well. I always think it's not like you're not going to be standing up on a stage and just presenting. It's not like that. It's more personal.
Yeah. We strive for that. So Stephen, you do the same thing. That's what you're talking about now, and what your book is about, Humany. Why don't you describe Humany better than me?
Well, humany is a word I created, which I hate to say to people from the UK, American creating a word in English, but I did it. I combined humanity, and harmony. And I was sitting on my balcony one night, having a glass of red wine, watching the sun go down, and thinking about how leadership is changing coming out of the pandemic. And this is actually still during the pandemic. And I just had this thought that we don't have harmony in the workplace. And I started some research into it and talking to leaders and organizational executives. And I said, well, tell me about harmony in your organization. What does it feel like? And they laughed and said, there's no such thing as harmony. I said, well, why not? And so kind of it's a bit challenging people to think about how do you create workplaces of well-being, of harmony, people-centric focus. And so that's where the word humanity comes from. And that's the book, and the concept of humanity leadership is all about being a people-centric leader, understanding that people have responsibilities outside work. We've always talked about work-life balance and had the attitude as leaders that it's okay if people have lives outside work, as long as they get their work done first and focus on work. And whether that required Saturdays and Sundays, we didn't care, just get the job done. But really, when it comes to that, people have responsibilities. I mean, they care for elderly parents. They, care for school children. They might coach a youth sports team. They might be involved in their local community in some volunteer activity. But to them, that's a responsibility. And that's an important responsibility to them. And so we have to change our attitude about that it's not about having a life outside work. It's how do we help people fulfill their non-work responsibilities and create harmony in our workplace and allow our employees to have harmony in their lives.
Andrew, harmony, this is what the relocation industry is striving for now, right?
Yeah, I mean, the relocation industries, there's, everyone's trying to work out how to be different. I don't think you need to be different. You just need to work in a more cohesive way of providing the services. You've got to realize that, don't look at people as competition anymore. Just look at, is there a solution? Can I use that company over there in that location? Can I use that company in that location? From that perspective. But I like what you said, Stephen, and I know we've spoken before on many events before, and you're completely right. Going back to in the office, how do you get people? Well, how do you get people back in the office at the moment? I mean, we all started working from home. I work from home most of the time. But I love going into the office still, because I feel I still need that interaction with people, because sometimes over a screen you can't do it. You cannot build that same relationship. Having said that, you can have these conversations anywhere in the world. We're all sitting in different countries, in different locations. It's fantastic that we can sit in this room at the same time and put across our thoughts and processes. But yeah, I've been doing a lot about how do you bring leadership together? How do you get stakeholders to actually join forces? Within an organization, it's so many times, if the stakeholders are not invested into what you're doing, then forget the project altogether, because it won't work. But how do you bring them together? So I've been looking at a lot of that, how that does that. And it's been coming up in my talks as well. So I do lots of motivational speaking, and the biggest thing I get asked is to do that kind of thing. How do you bring everyone together? And I do a talk on resilience now, just through the experiences that I've had with my own personal life, really, with the challenges that I've set myself. So yeah, it's interesting. And Yvonne's a very good friend of mine, and we've known each other for many years as well. And Yvonne's just gone through a move herself, haven't you, Yvonne? You've gone from the US now, and you're in France. So it's great how we all see each other on the screens like we're still in the same room.
So I thank you very much for joining me and everybody here. We're going to end this now. We're all busy. And Stephen, I'm sorry you won't be able to join us in London, but someday we'll do a meeting in Mexico City. And then I'll ask everybody to join us
And-
in your house.
And Stephen, I still need to talk to you about writing my book.
I can help you there.
Okay, so Yvonne, what's the title of your book?
Whose career? Yours, mine, or ours?
That's telling, isn't it? That perfect words. Heather, that's a winner topic for your session coming up on April 23 with Yvonne.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you told me you're gonna bring some storyboards into the
Yeah.
meeting. So why don't you quickly just describe what you mean by that? What's on those boards?
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, it took a year. I did a qualitative research study. It took me 12 months called Peace of Mind on the Move. I think we all need peace of mind. So I developed a storyboard, a poster board, if you will. I know usually it's in academic circles that you do a poster board, but what I find is with spouses and with accompanying partners that we tell stories or they tell stories. And a lot of the data I collected was thick data. So what I wanted to do was really take a different approach to gathering really, really strong, robust metrics, which I took from permits and other experts in the field. And what I did was I measured all the workforce trends like health and well-being and resilience, Andrew. And then what I did was captured all of those rich snippets and stories, and then used a process of thematic analysis to see what was missing from the big data. So this all evolved, organically. So on my poster board, I actually have all of the key insights, the challenges, the fact that dual careers is hiding in plain sight, DEI and B, all of the buzzwords, AI is in there, and how we can approach Industry 5.0 as proposed by the European Union in a way that is human-centric. So that's really the essence of the kind of storyboard and the overview that I will be bringing for peace of mind and harmony and for humanity. So I think there's a very wonderful overlap here with everyone, in particular Yvonne.
Thank you all for being on Global HR Business, a series that I'm developing for GlobalTV talk show. And let's sign off, and we'll see you in London. Stephen, I hope someday you can do it live.
I look forward to seeing you all, and I won't be late for that one.
Have a lovely weekend, everyone.
Okay, thank
Thank
you
you all.
all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.